Good evening, councillors and staff, PM. Good evening, everybody. I declare the meeting of the 1st of June 2022 City Service Committee open at, what time is it anyway? 6:33, sorry, I had my phone turned upside down. Okay. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette included. Debate on an item will commence only once we have a mover and a seconder for the item. Now, I also remind you that that this meeting is the video recording is an official record of council and may be made available to persons upon request, in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recordings are permitted. Acknowledgement of country. Council respects the traditional custodians of the land, elders past and present on which this meeting takes place, and acknowledges the Gadigal and Bidjigal clans of the Sydney Basin. Now, I'm not quite sure, did we have, Councillor Sidrak, I was just about to say any apologies. So we've got all our councillors here. So all present, no need for apologies. Disclosure of interest. Are there any councillors that have a disclosure of interest on any of the items tonight? If no disclosure of interest, now that will be minuted. Thank you, councillors. Okay, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. 4.1, minutes of the City Services Committee meeting that was held on the 4th of May 2022. Can I move by Councillor Najee, second by Councillor Jansen. All in favour say aye, against declare it carried. Okay, now there's only 5 items on the agenda for tonight's meeting, so we will move to the next item. Now we've got reports. The first item, CS 22.011, review of additional dog off-leash area across Bayside. We do have an officer's recommendation. Could I have a move by Councillor Morrissey, second by Councillor Muscat? Councillor Morrissey?
Would any council officers like to speak to that before we use to summarise what the report is?
I can do that if you like.
Thank you.
Okay. This report's following on from the City Services Committee of the 6th of April 2022. We have reviewed the further suggestions that were put forward by councillors at that meeting, and also feedback from the community speaker who spoke at the meeting. The report seeks to reconcile all the suggestions raised through the committee and provide a superseding and consolidated list of suggested locations for additional off-leash areas in each ward. It needs to be noted that indicative costs are included in the report, but there is no allocated funds in the 22-23 capital works budget for any additional fields at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to move just an amendment that a report including the nominations for unenclosed areas be submitted to council, and the reason, so that's just amending number 2. So you just change number 2, just including the nominations for unenclosed off-leash areas. And councillors, what I'm suggesting here is that just based on the estimated funding on just the ballpark figures there, that up to $100,000 to enclose a park with a fence. It's quite an expensive fence, but I do understand the cost of that. And given our our commitment to good fiscal management. We want to minimise expenditure where possible, but also provide additional services. So what I'd be seeking to do then, if we look down to the impact being endorsed for the report and the enclosed dog parks being off-leash areas, being noted for future reference.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
I just had a question in relation to the amendment, but in relation to the suggestion of Hughes Avenue, that's quite a small reserve. So if that was enclosed, as per these original suggestions, how much of that park would be left for general use?
So, since our through the chair, since our last meeting, when we heard from the community speaker on the matter, it was suggested within the report that we would, as opposed to continuing on with Hughes Avenue, would suggest Riverine Park as a potential enclosed facility instead.
Yeah,
So
I do get that,
Yeah.
but I was just wondering, but is there a minimum size for enclosing?
It's
And
four-
that would pretty much take out that whole park. Yeah.
400 square metres is the benchmark, but I do agree that it is a small facility overall, which was also was considered as part of opting in Riverine Park as a better suggestion rather than Hughes Avenue.
Thank you, and that's another reason to support the amendment also.
Thank you. Just a question. In the body of the report, we talked about nominated by community speakers and nominated by councillors. Is that simply to give us an idea what parks, but we won't be acting on that in the near future?
So through you, Chair. So the nominations that we received from councillors did also include community feedback originally when we first looked at this. Not at the last City Services Committee, but earlier in the year. The report then also went on to include additional suggestions that were put forward by councillors.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any other comments? No comments. Okay, we've got a office recommendation moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Muscat. All in favour say aye. Aye. Against, declare it carried. Okay, we're on item, next item on the list is CS 22.011, Reverend Park update. Can we have a mover and a seconder, please? I just wanted to clarify, I did have a few questions from councillors sitting on the committee. With the recommendation, we need some sort of a clarification on, because the officer's recommendation doesn't really say much as far as what's in the body of the report. And if we look at page of that report, actually it's the second page, which is page 12, I'm not sure if it's the same, number 3, it does actually point out that tendering processes for the sporting partners to create a sporting hub at Reverend Park, and it lists Uncliffe, Aurora, the Cricket, New South Wales, and the St George DR LFC. Could that be actually put into the recommendation?
Yes, through you, Mr Chair, absolutely. We can put that the negotiations and that master licence agreement will be with the 3 clubs exclusively in terms of the EOI.
Which will give it more clarification as far as the clubs are concerned, I think. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, we'll just give you a bit of time to add number 3. Yeah, sure. And could I, get you to speak as a summary on this item?
Of course, no problem. So in August last year, we ran an expression of interest to interested parties. It went out via Council's Tenderlink page, and we were looking for sporting groups that wanted to partner with Council to deliver a precinct at Riverine Park. Now, we listed a number of objectives in terms of what council wanted to achieve, and it was to refurbish the already existing infrastructure that we have there in terms of the building, so that we could accommodate more sporting clubs at the site, install irrigation, update the fields, and also improve the entrance road and install a compliant sewer, which we don't have at the site. So council committed to 2 playing fields that we would undertake ourselves, and the design and approval of a sewer through Sydney Water. Now, that work's been completed and was under the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure grant funding. So works were completed, and we're now in the growth period for that grass, and it'll be ready in September.
That's great.
And then we initiated the discussions with the 3 sporting partners, which were approved to proceed to that master licence agreement. Now, we've had a look, I guess, in terms of the overall area there, and there was a zone that was limited for active sport, and that's what these clubs are allowed to engage with us on. And we've put some key considerations into what they need to look at. And then we've provided in the report a timeline of activities in terms of what we need to do for that long-term agreement through a master licence.
Okay, thank you. That's great, and it's quite good news that the work is being completed, and September will be time that we've done very well. Thank you so much. Councillors, any other comments? Councillor Jansen?
Just through you, Chair, will those environmental zones be available as well in September for?
No, so the environmental zones will remain within council's care and control and won't be part of the master licence agreement. So we would undertake them as part of the overall master planning and make sure that they're available for general community and not hired out.
Oh, that's what I meant. They'll be available in September for general community to.
No, so the works that we've done out on site have been just in terms of upgrading the 2 fields. We haven't undertaken any work in the environmental zones as yet.
Thank you. Councillor Cedric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I just also ask, other than the 2 fields, just to clarify, there's also some indoor courts, is that right?
As part of the expressions of interest, each sporting club has submitted what they would like to see at the site, and that's what we're firming up in terms of the master licence agreement. So the lead being, you know, we have 3 clubs, Arncliffe Aurora, Cricket New South Wales and St George Rugby League. Each of them has put forward their own individual submission, and they do include, the Rugby League includes a partnership with basketball.
Great. Thank you so much. Can I just add to that? I think this is a real exciting project, and it's so great to see soccer, rugby league and cricket come together for a unified community outcome. In that last point you mentioned about basketball, and as we've discussed previously, basketball is quite a contentious issue in Bayside, especially that we have such a limited space. And if I could just please mention, and through the other members, maybe we could add some points in regard to this, but having these 3 organisations is great. I think having a connection with basketball and volleyball would be vital in this project. At the moment, it looks like we have 2 basketball courts or some kind of indoor courts. And the difference with what we've got on the table and what we're asking for example, with basketball, I would love to see that the local organisations such as St George Basketball or New South Wales Basketball, those associations are involved in this process so that this hub becomes a real multi-purpose space. And the difference we're talking about here, councillors, is between basically a metre or 2 sideline to a 3-metre sideline. And the difference is having space for bench as well as scoreboard and making it competition ready. And I think what we've seen some evidence previously from St George Basketball and New South Wales Basketball is that we don't have many spaces in Bayside that are competition ready for basketball as well as volleyball. And since we're building such a space, I think it would be a shame since the organisation is putting this together, since it's been put on the table. Whoever builds
That's
it and
fine.
how...
No, that's fine. No, keep going. Keep
Sure,
going.
sorry. So however this comes into existence, I think if we could just have that in the back of our minds, as well as the toilets and the change rooms being downstairs, just taking that into consideration, as well as the storeroom and storage. And I could see how this could be quite a challenge to have so many sporting facilities, such a small space for so many sporting facilities or organisations. So if I could add anything, and I think maybe Councillor Morris, you can add to this, is that we look at, did you want to add? Maybe
Sorry, I just, can I say,
Sorry.
sorry, Councillor Sedrak, you finish what you have to say, and then Councillor Saranovsky. Councillor, sorry,
I need to raise a point of order. I'm not disagreeing with what Councillor Sedrak is saying, but the point of order is, we went to expressions of interest.
correct.
There was 3 organisations, there was 4 groups actually tendered for her. 1 we said, no, you don't comply. We went to expressions of interest, 4 groups, we knocked 1 out, and we said, these other 3 get together and have a powwow.
Yeah,
And that's what we're at. I could just, well, I'm not disagreeing with you, but we can't change the rules because
correct.
it's gone to the market. We've done expression of interest. We've already gone to the market and we've picked the 3 organisations that we want to negotiate
Yeah.
with. I don't have a problem with St George Basketball somewhere, but on this
It's too late.
concept, we've already gone to the market.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we're going to
Sure.
ethically.
Thank-
I'll check with us.
Thank you, Councillor Saranovsky. Yeah, that's a valid point. Councillor Naji.
Look, I totally agree with Councillor Saranovsky. Having said that, I can see the spirit that Councillor Sedrak, he probably loves basketball, we all do. Just a bit of background, don't judge me how I look now, but I was an all-rounder. I was a great rugby league player, which I was nearly chosen by the Roy Masters days to play for St George, and also a great soccer player and a cricketer and an all-rounder.
And a wrestler.
And a wrestler, state wrestler. But anyway, what we have in front of us, we've been negotiating with our local clubs. When I say negotiating, they made some presentation to us, and I remember Craig Young, he was one of my favourite props. He came and he gave us his vision. The Arncliffe Aurora Club gave us their vision, and it's been going on since the last council term. Then we decided to go to expression of interest. And I am so proud to see this project to go ahead, and that is by having the Bayside Sporting Hub, which involves the 3 major sports, which is soccer, rugby league, and cricket. Now, the clubs did that. If they did, of course, they would have been considered. We would have looked at it. But they're the one that's going to spend millions of dollars, which we don't have. So can you imagine, as a councillor, having this facility, a sporting hub in Bayside, and strategically it's in the middle of the east and west, which is great. Anyone can attend to it. And I can't wait The only thing that I'm worried about is in the report that I looked, it looks like it's going to go on for a while, and I think we need some certainty so we don't lose St George Rugby League, so we don't lose the one of the biggest soccer clubs. And there's millions of dollars, and there's one grant that the federal government has given the soccer club of 1.1 or 1.3.
1.5.
The IDA, okay, that will expire in early 24 or something. So if we don't act, and St George Leagues are already, you know, they've asked for funding, they've got money, the other clubs got money. So let's make this happen within a good time frame of September. And I'm sure Councillor Cedric will be happy, because if not both of them, one of them will include, and I'm sure they will include for basketball, and then we can encourage them, go and talk to the St George Basketball Association, how you guys could work together and have some activities of some games of basketball. I'm not going to
Sure.
keep going on, but I just want to see this project as soon as possible, so the mayor of the day can open it, cut the ribbon, and we can all be proud that we have achieved a sporting hub that caters for all. And I can assure friends of Gardner Park or anyone, no one is thinking of synthetic, because we haven't seen any reports come back from the minister. So it's going to be natural grass, it's going to be all natural environment. So I'm sure, hopefully, we
Natural
won't
turf.
be having any objections on that side. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd like, sorry, before, I'd like the GM to make a comment, because earlier when Councillor Cedric was talking, you wanted to actually say, would you say something?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points which I will summarise and reiterate some of the things that have been said. One is that, as was pointed out, we can only enter agreements with the three organisations who were part of the EOI.
Sure.
We cannot now introduce a new organisation into the mix, so that's quite clear. However, the good news is that St George starting those discussions with the three organisations about what that will look like in detail. So what the specifications will be, what facilities will be included in their buildings and in their in the refurbishment of the existing building. So it's early days in terms of the detail. We understand what basketball would like to achieve, and it is discussions through Rugby League with the Basketball Association so that we can land on a place where everyone is satisfied with the facilities being built.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Through
Jim.
Mr. Chair, to the GM, can we clarify or confirm that there are already talks between the two major, which is the Rugby League and the Unenclosed Aurora, talking together because they're on the same page, and how they can come to an agreement to provide something like working together and communicating together to bring out a positive result?
And as a passive recreation supporter, I'm delighted to see the areas that have been earmarked for passive recreation, not just necessarily organised sport, but it's where you can actually go, sit down and just relax and then take in what's happening around the scenes. And it's going to blend in also in relation to Barton Park, the multi-purpose complex that we're going to be developing over the next few years. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Swarovski. There being no further discussion, we're dealing with item CS 22.012, Reverend Park update, moved by Councillor Swarovski, seconded by Councillor Morrissey. We have an officer's recommendation. All in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. Now we're on to the next item, CS 22.013, Bexley and Scarborough Park Tennis Courts Renewal. Moved by Councillor Morrissey,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councillor Swarovski. Councillor Swarovski.
Yeah, just wanted to, through you, Mr Chair, just ask a question. When we do go to tender, are we going to restrict those the tennis courts at Bexley for tennis courts only?
Through the chair. So when the tender package is developed, there will be a focus on tennis, but there will be an allowance for multi-sport, but obviously that's yet to be determined.
Okay, thank you.
And we've got the, I stand corrected, we've got, I think it was $200,000, Mr Chairman, to the, from that $5 million we got from the federal government, or was it from the state government?
Sorry, through you, the Chair, we have funding from LRCI grant funding of $600,000 for this. Yes.
Oh, great. The only reason I asked, sorry, Mr Chairman, to hold up the meeting, was that if we, I'm just sort of, no one's approached me, but I'm not 100% sure whether it's financially viable to have a tennis court there. That's my only issue. In Bexley on Forest Road, on Bexley Road. In terms of, and my greatest fear is, admittedly I've been lucky, but when it was operational, my thought was always been, what happens if a ball goes over to Bexley Road and someone loses control of their car? That's why I was just curious to see whether when we do go to tender, if we could not necessarily close the books on if a community organisation comes up with an alternative use. So the way I read it, we will look at alternative use. Yeah, thank you. That satisfies my issue.
Councillor Morrissey.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to. Councillor McDougall had some issues in relation to Scarborough Park. Apparently, some residents got in contact with him, concerned about. I think it's covered in the report, but the lighting. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Swarovski. Councillor Morrissey.
I was probably just extending on what Councillor Swarovski said. If we can just, for the record, describe what community consultation has taken place and what's intended to take place to address the community concerns with the lighting and the noise and the multi-usage component of that. So I acknowledge that there are some comments in the report, but I think it's important just to have complete clarity on what the intentions are, noting that effectively these could be done as complying rent or an exempt development. But I note that we're looking at more reports, an environmental report, etc., to then take to the community. So if you just describe what's going to happen for the community, that'd be great. Thank you.
Of course, no problem. For Scarborough Park tennis courts, they are close to an environmental protected zone, so we will be undertaking a full review of environmental factors. And whilst that can go under a Part 5 approval process, the new legislation for Part 5 is that from the 1st of March, it is recommended that it goes on public exhibition, and it's legislative requirement from the 1st of July that we do actually publicly exhibit. So the plan is that we've put out a notice to let neighbouring properties know that's coming, in terms of we will be doing some work. And then in July to August, we'll put a full Have Your Say package out, specifically for Scarborough Park, to say what the proposed works are, what do the review of environmental factors hold. So that will be quite detailed. Then we'll report back, of course, on the outcomes of that. For Bexley, we've had some direct contact with the neighbouring properties, and there are less neighbouring properties at Bexley, so it's been a little bit more site-specific, but that has gone out to letterbox drop and notification and on the website. So that's almost coming to the end of the period for Bexley, but Scarborough, we still have a bit to go.
Okay, and then thank you for that summary, and as a matter of process, then that community feedback will be incorporated into the report and form the basis of any recommendations that will be brought before council.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the second question on that, in relation to timing, and I know there's a lot of things that have to align here, but from March to October seems a fairly long time. Is there what's driving that gap between March and October with commencement and completion?
Look, we've allowed the 6-month period in terms of construction. We anticipate that it could be quicker, but given the delays that we've seen recently with lead times that we're experiencing in the construction industry, we do think that it will be in the order of around 6 months. So we don't want to put anything forward that isn't achievable.
Which is pretty smart move, I think, when you consider the state government has put a freeze on their work. Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you. Any other comments, councillors? If not, we're dealing with CS 22.013 Beckstein Scarborough Park Tennis Courts Renewal. We have an officer recommendation moved by Councillor Morrissey, seconded by Councillor Sorowski. All in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. We're on to the next item, CS 22.014 Service New South Wales Renewed Partnership Agreement. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Saravanovsky. We have an officer's recommendation. Any discussion? If no discussion, I'll put it all in favour, say aye. Against, declare it carried. Oh, that was a quick one. Okay, I think we're on to the last item, CS 22.015, Community Safety Strategy 2022-2026. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Jansen. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Jansen?
Yeah, thank you for this draft community strategy. It's very robust. I did notice that this strategy does intersect with a lot of other council strategic documents, such as sort of makes reference to public art and various other strategies that could fall under the DAP or the age-friendly strategy. Would it be prudent to maybe include potentially in the somewhere in the document or in the action plan just that the related documents to it, because it kind of makes it speak to other council documents, because currently it's a bit sort of, it's standing alone. It does filter into the community strategic plan, but I think it gives it a bit more of a meatier action if those other related strategies could be mentioned within the action plan.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen.
Through you, Mr Chair, that's a really good suggestion and one we'd be happy to take on board. It's also in the delivery program and the operational plan, so getting that connection across all of those plans is very useful.
Thank you. Okay.
Can I just ask a question, Mr Chairman?
Yeah, sure. Councillor Saravanovsky.
When this is adopted, can we send it off to the police and the local members of Parliament, just so they at least know what our action plan...
Did you want to add that to the recommendation, Councillor? Yeah, number 2, I guess, yeah.
And through you, Mr Chair, it's already been consulted with the police as well, and we have their endorsement, but we'll certainly send the final product.
Ahead of us.
Yeah. We'll send the final product.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it all in favour, say aye. Against, declare it carried. Councillors, that's our last item on tonight's agenda. So there being no further items, I declare meeting closed at 7:07. Thank you all.
We switched off.
I've got copies of the receipts on that.